Hey, this is Efrem Smith, and I'm standing next to LaSalle Thompson, former NBA player. He played against Larry Bird. He played against Michael Jordan, Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, Magic Johnson, Isaiah Thomas. In the 80s and 90s, everybody. And I can't jump over him, but you know what? If you want to hear about his career and all kinds of cool stuff about the NBA, check out the next episode of Rise of the Reconcilers right now. Hey everybody, this is Efrem Smith, another episode of Rise of the Reconcilers, where we talk to people who are influential, making an impact in a diverse yet divided world. And I'm excited to have as my guest, LaSalle Thompson, former NBA basketball player, played for the Sacramento Kings, played for the Indiana Pacers and other teams, and he also is from Cincinnati, Ohio. Like, some people say this is like the funk band capital of the world, and he's also just a good friend, member of the church that I pastor. So would you step into this conversation between me and LaSalle Thompson? What's up, man?
Hello, F. How you doing, man?
Good to see
My
you,
man.
I've been wanting to have you on here for a while. One, because I'm a huge sports fan. You see, I have my classic.
Yeah, you got his
Minneapolis.
He ain't got no Kings gear though.
Yeah. I should have wore that in honor of you. But I'm a big Minnesota sports fan. Mm-hmm. So you've been around me for a while. So I'm Minnesota Vikings, Minnesota Twins, Minnesota Timberwolves. Yeah. But a lot of people don't know the Los Angeles Lakers come from Minneapolis, Minnesota.
Yeah, that's why they call the Lakers.
Yeah,
land of 10,000 lakes.
That's right, because there's no lakes in LA. Mm-hmm. And I have this powdered blue on because, again, the original name Minneapolis Lakers, so blue for
that was their color.
Yeah.
How did they switch? They just, when they went to LA, they switched to purple and gold.
I think eventually they went to purple and gold.
I always wondered where their colors came from.
Yeah, so maybe they think they're royal or something. So
that's where it came from. Yep.
So you are from Cincinnati, Ohio.
Born and raised.
So before we even get to basketball, I said that funk band capital. So between Cincinnati and Dayton.
Also, the Kings used to be in Cincinnati at one time.
Oh, really?
Yeah, back when Oscar Robertson played for them.
So
they were the Cincinnati Royals, and then they moved to Kansas City. But Kansas City already had a baseball team called the Royals, so they changed the name to the Kings.
And then when it came to Sacramento, they just kept the Kings.
And then they went to light blue when they came to Sacramento. We never wore light blue.
All right, what
Kansas City, we were royal blue.
Oh, royal blue.
Royal Kings, they kind of went together.
Yeah.
But when they came out here, they changed it to light blue.
Yeah. So that's who you were originally drafted by?
Kansas City Kings.
The Kansas City Kings. Yes. So let's go back to Cincinnati for a minute. And I lived in Dayton, Ohio for a little while.
Okay.
So what is Zap Band and Roger Troutman?
Isley Brothers. The Deal.
That was a band that Babyface was originally in with L.A. Reid, right?
Yep. Even before they got Babyface, they were The Deal. And then they brought him on a year or two later.
Yeah. Ohio players.
Yeah, they're from Dayton, I think. Slave.
Oh,
Slave.
Yeah.
Lakeside. Randy Crawford. Man, so many. Midnight Star. I'm still not remembering everybody. There's a lot of musicians.
What is it about Cincinnati, the state of Ohio, that they produce so many of the old school funk bands from the 1970s and early 80s?
My only guess is Cincinnati originally was the last stop of the Underground Railroad.
Yeah.
So if you crossed the Ohio River and got to Cincinnati, you were a free man. Now, a lot of people kept on past Cincinnati and they went to Toledo, Chicago, Detroit. For the manufacturing jobs in the auto industry. But a lot of people got to Cincinnati and said, we good here.
Yeah.
And Cincinnati is more of a southern town than it is a northern town, even though it's the first northern town.
Because the airport for Cincinnati is technically in Kentucky.
Yeah, yep.
Yeah.
But just about everybody, growing up, I remember everybody from Cincinnati or who lived in Cincinnati came from the South. Like I've never met anybody say, I'm from New York or, I'm from Chicago. They were all from somewhere in the South. Yeah. My mother's family is from Mobile. My father's family is from Louisiana.
Oh, yeah.
So
on my dad's side from Louisiana too, from Monroe. What part of Louisiana for you?
I want to say Montgomery, but I got to find that out. My aunt had told me because I was there a couple of years ago, finding out our history, and she told me and I forgot. But we were, they were Creole. They were from Louisiana.
Yeah. So, what age were you when you realized I might be pretty good at this basketball thing.
Dude, I started playing basketball late, so I didn't learn to play basketball. I didn't get my first basketball till I was in 8th grade. And of course, I didn't go out for the team that year. And then the next year, when I was in the 9th grade, my junior high went up to the 9th grade. So when I was in the 9th grade, I was already 6'5". And honestly, the coach only put me on the team because I was the tallest kid in school because I couldn't play yet. And I just learned from there. And then when I got to senior high school, my high school coach, he actually told me a couple of years ago that he told the coach, you got to keep him on the team. So I think he probably was going to cut me. He said, you got to keep him on the team because he's going to be real tall. And the guy kept me. We won one game when I was in the 9th grade. Lost every game except one. And then when I got to the 10th grade, the guy who's the starting center on the varsity team, he moved to Florida like 2 weeks after school started. And I think our coach knew the team's not going to be that good. We only won 3 games when I was in the 10th grade. But he said, I'm going to throw this kid out there and let him play.
Yeah.
And that year, that was only my 2nd year playing. I made honorable mention All-City. The next year, I made All-City. Next year, I made All-American. I made All-State. I would have made All-American, but Ralph Sampson and Sam Bowie and, you know, Clark Kellogg, Terry Cummings, all those really good guys, Hall of Famer guys came up with me. So they all made All-American.
So even your sophomore year when you only won 3 games, there must have been something that you were doing individually that you stood out.
I rebounded.
Yeah.
That was it. I didn't really know how to score yet, but I rebounded. And I worked hard. And my coach now tells me, I didn't know it then, he told me I was the hardest working guy he ever saw, but I didn't know any better.
Yeah.
So whatever he told me to do, I would do. I thought you have to do this to be a good player. And so I did everything. But he told me he never seen anybody work as hard as me.
So you end up at the University of Texas. Was there any other players from your team, your senior year, that went on to Division I schools?
No. Some of them played junior college. I want to make sure before I say this. No. None of them played D1. I thought there was a couple guys I thought were going to make it to the pros, but they didn't. But we had a good team. It wasn't
So
just
by the
me.
time you were a senior, you won more than 3 games.
Oh, yeah. My senior year, I think we only lost 1 game. Yeah, we went undefeated. We lost in the state tournament. We made it to like the final 16 or 32 teams, and we lost to a school named LaSalle. They beat us, and that was the end of my career. But, yeah, we won 3 games. Then the next year, I think we lost 2 or 3. And then my senior year, we lost 1 game, the final game of my high school career.
So you went on to play for the Texas Longhorns.
Yes.
What other schools were after you?
Everybody.
Wow, yeah. So
Back then, you could only visit 6 schools, but everybody could recruit you. And I used to get stacks of letters every day. And they would just give them to me in a garbage bag. And I narrowed it down to Texas because one of their assistant coaches was from Cincinnati. So when he came and he gave me some shoes, you weren't supposed to do that. And my high school colors were orange and black. We were the Tigers. He gave me some Dr. J's, and they had the orange star and the chevron on them. I said, oh man, I'm wearing these tonight. And that's what started it. But then when I went down there to visit, I left Cincinnati and it was cold. It was 40 degrees that day. I visited in September, and it was 40 degrees when I got on the plane. It was a football weekend in Texas, which anybody from Texas will tell you, football is king in Texas.
Yeah.
And I got off the plane. It was 85 degrees and sunny, and I love hot weather. And I was like, dude, I think I'm going to have to go to school here. But I told them, don't tell anybody because I'm taking other visits.
Yeah.
So I visited some other schools, but I decided on Texas. I was sold on it.
I was going to say, do you wish the NIL was around
Dude.
when you was in college?
Dude, I wish
You have players getting $500,000, $1 million
I wish I
while
was
they're playing
thinking,
college.
dude. But the funny thing is, I say that, but I think you get by guys like Oscar Robertson, who made $100,000. He probably one of the 10 best players ever. And, he's the guy that invented free agency.
Yeah, but Oscar Robinson was.
He made
playing
$100,000. At least I got to a point where I made $2 million. But now I'd be an easy $20-30 million a year player. But
Yeah.
got to live with it.
So you played for Texas.
Yes.
And then how would you describe your career at the University of Texas?
We had an okay team. We were kind of middle of the road. My junior year, when I went pro, that year we were 14-0, and ranked. I want to say we got up to 5th in the country. And then our second best player, a guy named Mike Wacker, who would have been in the NBA, he blew out his knee, and we were 14-0. We ended up the season 16-11. And then my coach told me I wasn't ready for the pros yet, and I was going to come back. And then 2 days after I had the meeting with him, They fired him, and I said, okay, I'm going to go. And I
So
went.
back then, you could enter the draft your junior year. Is that the
Yeah.
earliest you could enter the NBA draft?
No, you could go earlier, but
So there was,
I wasn't good
because I
enough
was
my
going to say,
sophomore year.
some people think about Kobe Bryant, but like Moses Malone, like for people
Moses
that
was the
are
first
like
guy that
old
went out of
school
high
like
school.
me,
Yep.
like Moses Malone, would that have been in the 70s or 80s?
He came out, I want to say he came out in 79, 78, something like that.
Yeah.
But that was when he came out, the same year he came out was when the NBA and the ABA came together. And he had played with the Virginia Squires, and then he got picked up in the expansion drive by the Houston Rockets.
Yeah.
And he was, even then, he was already an all-star.
So what year did you get drafted to the NBA?
I got drafted in '82, and I was the 5th player taken. And, I got drafted by Kansas City, and so I had a long
That's another
career.
thing. So you were in college, but they didn't have NIL back then.
No.
And then you think now, what a first round NBA draft pick. And you was number 5 overall?
I was number 5. I got 150 grand.
Who were the
my
players
first
that
year.
went before you?
James Worthy, Terry Cummings, Clark Kellogg. No, Clark Kellogg didn't go before me. Dominique Wilkins was number 3.
Dominique Wilkins.
And then
You
a guy,
in highlight film.
Yeah. And then there's a guy named Bill Garnett, I think was his name, who I should have been in front of. And then I went number 5. Clark Kellogg went 8, which at that point in my career, Clark Kellogg was the best player I ever played against. Guys don't know about him because he blew his knee out his second year. But
And he's now a TV analyst.
Yeah,
So if you watch March Madness
you'll
every
see
year
him.
during college, he's like one of the main commentators.
I'm telling you, he was like magic. He was
I
really,
remember Clark
really good.
Kellogg. Ohio State, right?
Yeah, went to Ohio State, played with Herb Williams, but he averaged 20 and 10 his rookie year.
Yeah.
And until I got in the NBA, he was the best player I ever played against.
Wow.
So
Okay,
he's good.
now there are people today, they think that, when they think pro basketball, they think LeBron James,
Yeah.
Steph Curry,
Yeah.
Kevin Durant.
Yeah, and those guys are
I'm a
great
little
players.
biased, Anthony Edwards
Yeah.
with the Minnesota Timberwolves. But, I mean, at my age, I feel like the heyday, like what put
No,
the
that's true. That was the
NBA
heyday.
on the map. What made it big is a lot of people say, first, Larry Bird
Yep.
and Magic Johnson, like they breathed new life
Yeah, they
into
did.
the NBA.
The NBA, I remember when I first came in, there were about 4 or 5 teams ready to go out of business. So they got together, they colluded, and they said, okay, we got to lower player salaries. Because the year before I got drafted, the Kings drafted Steve Johnson at number 6. He made $600 a year. When I came in, James Worthy was the number 1 pick. He got $250 a year.
Wow.
I was number 5. I think my first year I made $150, and they just had to lower salaries because some teams were ready to go out of business. Kansas City was one of them, and so they pushed down the salaries, and then because of Magic and Larry Bird, because of how good they were in college and the rivalry they created,
Yeah.
the league grew from that. Like when I first came in the year, they were showing championship games on tape delay, and you'd have to wait till the news went off at 11:30 and watch it.
And it's funny. I thought that was just because I lived in Minnesota.
No, it was
so
every
when
game,
I the Timberwolves didn't come on the scene to the late
Yeah.
1980s.
I remember when they
So
came in.
as a kid, there was no pro Minnesota basketball
Yeah.
team, and I remember like games coming on at 10 o'clock at night.
Yep.
But my dad would already know what some of the scores were before the game would come on, and I just thought, oh, the game is
Tell me
late
if you
because we don't have a
remember this.
team.
The news would be on there and say, okay, if you're going to watch the game after this, turn your head. We're going to show you the score. And they would show the score.
Yeah.
And I would turn my head because I want to watch the game and really see who won.
So this was just all over the country.
Yeah, it was like that all over the country.
In the late 1970s, in the early
80s,
1980s.
yeah.
Because again, I can remember Magic Johnson's rookie year.
Mm-hmm.
The Lakers win the NBA championship. He plays center because
that
Kareem
last
Abdul-Jabbar
game.
was
That's when
hurt.
they first started not showing it late at night. Like I remember that final game when they played Philadelphia, they won the championship. That was a Sunday afternoon game.
Yeah.
And he had the 42, and Jamal Wilkes had 37, and they beat Dr. J. And that was when the Lakers became the Lakers.
So when you came in the NBA, how diverse racially was the NBA?
It was pretty diverse. I'm not that old, but it was pretty diverse. But when I played for Bill Russell, who coached the Kings, he said when he came in the league, he said every team had exactly 2 NBA players. Nobody had 3, nobody had 1. So he said, they sent down an email or something. Well, there were no emails. They made a call, said, look, every team matter of fact, it's 1. He said every team can have 1 guy. Nobody had two. Nobody had three.
What do you mean by one guy? What do you mean?
They had one black guy. Every team had one black guy. Every team in the league had one black guy.
And this was 1980 something?
No, when Bill came in, he came in the 60s. And
Oh,
then,
so you mean
when
when
he
Bill
came,
Russell
when
was
Bill
a player.
Russell came in.
So before he was a coach.
Yeah, he was telling me this
that
when he
makes
was a
sense to me.
coach.
So yeah, back then, like you had Bill Russell was
Yeah.
the black guy for the Celtics. And then
And they only had like 12, 15 teams.
so
Something
one
like
or two. And then you had Wilt
that.
Chamberlain.
No, one. Everybody had one.
Everybody had one black guy.
Yep, that was it.
But by the time you come into the NBA,
That was just whoever were the best players were taken. Yeah.
and was the NBA starting to be called, oh man, this has become a black sport?
Yes, it had in the 70s. It became that in back then. The 70s it was kind of like the Wild West because they had you had guys smoking weed, and it became a scandal in the 80s. That I don't know why they were back looking, but they found all these guys in the 70s that had been getting high and smoking weed and
So
getting
yeah,
high
so that
before
wasn't
games.
rumored. It was like they were guys in the
but
locker room.
The scandal
before the
happened
game.
in the 80s.
Yeah.
I don't know if they were in the locker room, but there was a lot of guys.
Oh, that was
Yeah,
just,
that scandal.
They did recreational drugs.
They were talking about all these guys in the 70s that were doing recreational drugs. And then they kind of quieted that. And then the league just blew up. It just grew. But it's mainly because of Magic and Bird. And then, Jordan came in '84. And after that, it just became worldwide.
Yeah. So you played during the same time.
Yeah.
I'm being a big fan right
Yeah.
now because I
Trust me, I was a fan too.
I like the NBA now. It's good, but I just feel like I'm biased that I feel like I played. Not played. I wish I did
Yep.
play. I watched. I wish I was wish I was a little bit taller.
I feel the same.
I wish I was a
feel the same
baller.
as you, dude. That's when you had Magic, Bird, Jordan. People forget guys like Kareem.
Yeah.
He's one of the 5 best. You had George Gervin.
Iceman.
My rookie year, I played against Elvin Hayes. That was his last year. But I can tell people I played against Elvin Hayes.
That's when I look back, the very first NBA Finals series
Mm-hmm.
I remember watching with my dad, Washington Bullets back then
West Sunset,
versus the Seattle Supersonics. And did they play back-to-back finals or
I think Seattle did.
Seattle? Okay, but
Washington
I can
did.
remember that being on TV
Yeah.
in my house, my dad watching it. Washington versus Seattle.
Yep.
Those two teams,
Yep.
and that was a battle. They had a battle
Yep.
going on.
They had some good players then. You had Jack Sigma. You had Downtown Freddie Brown.
Yeah.
You had what's the Williams? Not Ray Williams, his brother, Gus Williams.
Gus Williams.
And I see Seattle had Lenny Wilkins, but they had West Sunset and what was the other forward they had that was really good?
Elvin Hayes.
Not Elvin Hayes. He was there too.
He was there too.
They had another really good player who was a forward. I can't remember his name. It's not coming to me now.
So you played at the same time Larry Bird, Magic Johnson, Michael Jordan,
Yep.
James Worthy, Charles Barkley.
Charles Barkley came in '84.
Literally, when the Dream Team
Yeah.
of the original
Yeah,
Dream
they
Team
were all in the league.
Olympics, they
Yeah,
was all
that's
in
when
the
they were
league
they were
when you
establishing
playing.
themselves at that time.
So the first team you play on is the Kings. Was
Yes.
that the first team you
yeah,
played
we
on?
were in Kansas City, and then they moved
And then you moved
here
to Sacramento.
To Sacramento
So
in '85.
So that would have been in the West. So
We were in the West, yes.
So I was watching this documentary ESPN did, Celtics versus Lakers. And
It
they
was
were
big
talking-
then,
And they were
even
talking
then.
about the rivalry. And I remember by the time they get to the rivalry where it's Bird versus Magic, and they're talking about the Laker teams in the 80s, and they're talking about the Boston teams. I see this clip where the Lakers are, they lost to Boston in the finals. Now they're trying to come back
Yep.
and get to the finals again.
Yep.
And Magic is talking about how, like he was determined to get back to the finals. And I see this scene where the Lakers are playing the Sacramento Kings, and I see you on there.
Yeah. They were good then, man. They used to beat us. Oh, man. They beat us, I want to say 10 out of 10 times. I think in 3 or 4 years, we might have beat them once or twice. They were good.
So the Kings teams you were on at that time, the Kings
We
were
were kind of middle of the road. We win, 40 games every year, but we couldn't compare it to the Lakers. One year we made it to the playoffs and we played them. I want to say it was my second year in the league. And it was a first round. It was best of 5. So we played the first two. It was the first 2 games there. Then the next 2 games in Kansas City. And there was a 5th game. We go back to LA. They beat us the first 2 games in Kansas City. This was Pat Riley was the coach. Yeah. They came to play us in Kansas City. These cats didn't even bring a change of clothes, and they had a flight going back after the game.
Because they like,
so I ain't saying, well, yo, we're gonna make these cats have to go buy clothes. Man, they waxed us and went home.
So they was like
they had already won the championship before that.
The first 2 games at home in LA.
And they came to Kansas City
and they like
waxed us and went home after. So it was an afternoon game.
Yeah.
And they caught the evening flight back to LA.
Wow. So later you played for the Indiana Pacers.
Yes, I got traded in '89 from Sacramento to Indiana, and I played there 6.5 years.
And that was a much more competitive team.
Yeah, we had a good team.
So now you go from you're playing Magic Johnson. Now is Bird still playing for Boston?
Yes, that's when they were still good. So when I got traded there in '89, I remember this. We didn't have a good team in Sacramento, but Indiana was even worse because I got traded February 19th. More than halfway through the season, they had 11 wins in February. That's how bad. They were like 11 and 40 something. And then we kind of played 500 ball the rest of the year. And then the next year, I think we went to the playoffs and we didn't make the playoffs the next year. We missed it by 1 game. Then the following year, we played Boston in the playoffs, and they beat us. And then the next year, we played, I think the next 2 years, we played New York. We beat New York in the conference finals, and then we beat New York the next year, but in the second round. And then we lost to Orlando, and they played Houston. Those were the 2 years Houston won the championship.
So you played with what some argue is one of the best pure shooters ever.
Reggie, yes.
Especially the three-point shot. I mean, when the three-point shot became a big deal, Reggie Miller was one of the ones that mastered it.
Let me tell you, until Steph Curry came along, Reggie was the best shooter. I always thought he was the best shooter. Bird was right up there, but Bird didn't shoot as many threes as Reggie. And Bird was 6'10". But Reggie, he was just so good at getting his shot off. I know, I was always setting picks for him. Now, you couldn't give him the ball and say, get us a bucket. You had to set picks and get him. Like, you give Jordan the ball and say, get us a bucket.
So part of your job
was to get him open.
Was to run into people and get people out the way. You were like I think of some guys like that get this reputation like Rick Mahorn or Bill Lambier, the bad boys from
Rick
Detroit.
Mahorn, me, Charles Oakley.
So you were known as that kind of player, physical guy, big guy down low. Now today's NBA, you get a foul for doing that.
Yeah, no, you can't do that.
Back then, you was doing the WWE stuff.
I'd be like, Reg, bring him off my side. I'm gonna just take a foul and clock him, and you would just clock a guy, and then just call a foul. You take your foul and keep playing.
Tell me a story. One of the hardest hits you put on somebody.
I would just hit a guy sometimes. They might be a good defensive player, I'll be like, or they might be doing a lot of holding. I said, that's all right, Reggie, bring him on my side. I'm gonna take a foul. Or I would tell Chuck Person, I give you one. Dennis Rodman, great defensive player. Yeah. Chuck could not get open. I said, Chuck, come out my side. I didn't like him anyway. I said, bring him out my side, Dennis Rodman. He came out my side, and I just caught him clotheslined him. And, man, this cat went down. I said, yeah, he going to the hospital now. That guy got right up and kept playing. I was like, yo, this cat got some toughness.
Yeah.
Just got up and kept playing. Didn't say anything to me.
But he didn't try to do nothing back.
No, he might have been a little scared of me. Because he never cheap shot at me. I had to worry about Lane Beer and Rick Mahorn. Those are the two I had to worry about.
Yeah, yeah.
And we just, we would just beat on each other.
They get a shot in, you get one in. They get one in, you get one in.
That was it.
So what was it about that era that the game was so physical?
It was just, the physicality was almost a defensive technique. Because once you go through the league, you know which guys don't like contact and which guys don't. So, like me and Mahorn, me and Oakley, me and Bill Lambier, we would hit each other, but it was just the way we played. We knew who didn't like to get hit.
Nobody took it personal.
No. We knew who didn't like to get hit, and those are the guys you would hit because it would take them out of their game.
Yeah.
Like people look at Reggie and how slim he was. Man, Reggie was fearless. But he would tell me if a guy was beating on him, I'd be like, that's all right, bring him out my side. I'll take care of this. And I would just clock him. And I'd tell him, keep holding my man. And they would ease up because they didn't want to get hit again. Some of them. Like a guy like Joe Dumars, he going to play the same regardless. Yeah. But Reggie was so good. All I had to do, when I picked for Reggie, all I had to do was make you take a half a step out of your way to get around me, and Reggie was going to get the shot.
Yeah.
A lot of guys couldn't do that. They had time to catch. As soon as Reggie caught it, He was ready to shoot. His feet were ready. As soon as he caught it, it was going up. And so all I had to do was make you take a half a step out of your way, and I would get him open. And he, you see him, you saw him, you hit those shots.
So when you played for the Indiana Pacers, at the time you played, bigger rivalry against the New York Knicks, bigger rivalry against the Chicago Bulls. Who was like your big rivals when you played?
Those two.
Chicago and
Detroit was still good. We weren't on Detroit's level. Okay. So there was really no rivalry. But our rivalries ended up being New York and Chicago. And Chicago was still good then. Yeah. Remember, when Jordan set out that year, that's when everybody caught up to him, and then he came back. But when I first got to Indiana, it was Detroit. They won the championship that year when I got traded there. And then the next year was when Chicago started. They got real good and won their 3 in a row and all that.
Yeah.
And those are the we never played them in the playoffs. We always had Boston and New York, but that was when Chicago.
I mean, that's what I remember. I remember the rivalries. When I think of Indiana, I think of the New York Knicks. Yeah. I think of Madison Square Garden and Spike Lee.
Yeah, they became
Lee.
That was when they became a rival.
Yeah. So when you were playing in the games when
I was in those games
when Spike and Reggie Miller going back and forth.
I was in that game, and what happened? Reggie got hot, and when one thing Larry Brown did,
that's the coach.
Larry said, "Look, I gave y'all a play, but if you see you got something, take it." And so when Reggie got hot, I always had the freedom to just go pick anybody because I said such good picks. And when Reggie got hot, I would just go pick him and get him open. Sometimes I didn't have to. He was coming down just catching, shooting. You didn't even have to get him open. And what happened, we got to the end of that. They were up 12 points with a minute left and we won. Uh-huh. And Reggie was hot, and that was the game he scored 25 in the fourth quarter. But they wasted their timeouts, and they got to the last minute and they had no timeouts.
Yeah.
And Reggie had just hit a 3. They were throwing the ball in, and since they had no timeout, the guy did that thing where he was falling over and he had to throw it in.
Yeah.
And Reggie was guarding Greg Anthony. And Greg Anthony fell down, but they had to throw it in, and they threw it, and Reggie caught it, backed up, and shot a 3, and he scored like 9 points in like 12 seconds.
Yeah.
And they went down and missed the shot, and we came back and scored again, and we won.
So describe film director Spike Lee courtside at Knicks games.
Yeah, Spike is a great guy, and he would sit on the front row and talk trash, but not demeaning. Just like, you ain't gonna win, He was like that kind of guy, the rah-rah guy.
Just a big fan.
Yeah, he's a big fan, and guys would get in because he'd be like, "Oh, that wasn't nothing. You ain't hit that shot." And he's like, "Shut up, Spike," because everybody knew his name. Yeah. Otherwise, he'd just be a fan. He'd be like, whatever, ignore him. But guys knew him because he was a great film director, and him and Reggie were going at it back and forth. And when Reggie hit the shot, I was like,
yeah.
And Spike couldn't say anything. Right. That game we won it. But that added to the rivalry. And then Spike, because it got so big, I believe the NBA would do this. They would fly Spike to Indiana, so he would be at our games in Indiana.
And that helped ratings.
Rooting for the Knicks. They gave him front row tickets and showing on TV.
Who do you remember, like, in terms of celebrities sitting courtside that you like, oh, I got to focus on the game?
In Indiana, nobody. There were none.
But I'm sure. I'm sure if you went on the road to the Laker game or you went on the
Lakers,
road,
man, you saw everybody.
Who would you see at courtside? You'd be like, man, I got to focus on the game.
I mean, you see it, Denzel. I remember one time I was taking the ball out and Tito Jackson was sitting there. I was like, so man,
Tito from the Jackson.
Yeah, from the Jackson. You would see everybody would be at the game because at the Laker games, people wanted to be seen. And that was a place to be seen. Jack Nicholson always sat right by our bench. And I've talked to him before, but James Caan, they would all come. Like, even if Jack wasn't there would be some Hollywood celebrities he would give his tickets to. But you see all these guys. And then when they were playing in the Forum, after the game, you would be taking your shower, rushing to get dressed because they had a club right in the arena called the Forum Club. And you would go up there. I talked to Charlie Sheen one night. He's like, come on, man, you want to go hang out? I was like, nah.
Oh, that was the first version of the Diddy part.
Well, this is in the 80s. He was already high. I was like, no, I'm not going out with that cat. And allegedly he was high. He may not have been, but he was out of it.
As far as you can tell, we don't know.
They would all be in the Forum Club, and you go up there and schmooze and talk to guys as everybody thinned out, and then, you'd always take a taxi back because no, I'm not going on the bus. I'll take a taxi back to the hotel.
So speaking of all that, how did you fight off all the temptations
Well-
of being an NBA? Because I mean, you hear too many
Yeah,
stories.
well,
of
you
too
hear
many
those stories
players
about
getting in
guys
trouble.
playing for the Lakers and all those good.
You're like, in Indiana, you can't get in trouble?
We didn't really. There were no women waiting at the hotel when we checked in. You hear those stories about those good teams that happened, but we didn't get that. You know, I mean, it was great being a pro athlete and, you know, being a single guy with a pocket full of money. It was nice, but it wasn't for Indiana Pacer or Sacramento King. It wasn't like that. The way
Did
it
you
was
have to
for,
worry
like, the
about
Lakers.
friends and family members, people
Yeah.
you knew, going, man, LaSalle got it going on now, man. LaSalle, man, can I get 27
no.
tickets
They'd
to
be
the
like,
game?
That cat making whatever. He owes me because I know him. Like,
Wow.
I mean, it was like
So you had
people
dudes
this
from the
sense of
hood
entitlement.
that felt like you owed
Not just
them.
kids from the hood, your entire I came from a big family. Your entire family, people you grew up with, people you played in high school with, people you played against, you know, your whole life. And they don't know anybody else that makes that kind of money. So I've heard every sob story in the book, and I can't tell you, 95% of people don't pay you back. You know, they give you these sob stories and get money, and they just don't pay you back. It's just, you know, the rule would be, if you loan people money, don't expect to get it back, because if they borrow from you, that means they can't get it from the bank. And you just assume, you hope they pay you back, but you need to assume they're not. And if you can't afford to not get it back, don't loan it to them.
Was it hard to trust people when you
Yeah.
became a pro
Yeah, you go
basketball
through all
player?
that.
Did you
don't
whether
know
whether it
who
was
to trust.
dating
Yeah.
somebody
Yeah.
or whether it was somebody that was like, hey man,
You go through
I
all
want
that,
you to
man.
partner with me. I mean, how did you
And remember,
deal with
you're
this
only
one?
like 23, 24 years old, and you hear every story in the book. You know, I remember my agent told me this, and this is true. Everybody wants you to finance their dream. That's what it was. And you had to learn, you know, coming in, you don't know, and you didn't have any money, so you didn't know. But then you learn through experience. Can't do it, man. Can't do it. I got to take care of myself. And remember, when I first came in, I wasn't making a whole lot of money. Like I said, I made 175 my first year in the league.
Was race a big issue in the league when you? I mean,
Not-
it seems like the NBA
Yeah.
has been ahead.
It's always
like,
been
like
ahead
in the
of the
NFL.
NBA. Yep.
They was. I mean, even in the 1980s,
Yeah.
they were still looking
Yeah.
for the first black head coach,
Yeah.
and finally you had Dennis Green with the Vikings, and you had Tony Dungy
Yeah.
with Tampa Bay. But it seemed like the
me tell
NBA
you something.
had already dealt with. I mean, you already had Bill Russell as a coach. You already had Lenny Wilkes as a coach. So
tell you something.
is the NBA always
Yeah,
been
they've
ahead of the
always been
game
ahead.
when it comes to race?
The NBA is the only, all sports, except for HBCUs, they're the only sport where you will see a black coach get fired and a black coach get hired. Nobody else, no college team does it. Anytime they have a black coach, if he gets fired, they don't bring in another black coach.
Yeah.
And I remember somebody, a coach challenged me on that once. I said, dude, because I was in Charlotte and there was a guy, Charlotte, North Carolina State fired their coach.
Yeah.
And there was a coach for us. He's like, man, I wouldn't mind having that job. And Larry Brown would, try to speak up for him. I said, dude, why don't you apply for that job? You'd be a good coach for them. He's like, man, they're not gonna hire me. I said, why not? He said, I'll tell you what. He said, I was always kind of a nerdy geek, computer kind of guy. He said, I'll tell you what. You go on your computer tonight. He said, if you come back tomorrow and you find anybody, he said, I don't even care the sport. Any school, any pro team, any college, outside of a historically black college that fired a black coach and hired a black coach, I'll give you $100. I was like, oh, I can do that. Dude, I went home. I looked all over the internet.
Couldn't
None.
find one.
None. And this was in 2010, 2009.
Wow.
None. And they don't, even to this day, they don't do it. Oh, they'll do it in the NBA, but nobody else will do that. Nobody will fire a black coach and hire a black coach. You might find one now. But I kind of watch that stuff. You see a black coach get fired, they'll be like, well, we tried that black thing, it didn't work.
Yeah.
And they'll hire 10 more white coaches. And then, a few years, they might try it again, but not back to back.
And the NBA probably was even the first in like black ownership. So seeing a Robert
the
Johnson,
only ownership.
yeah, like Robert Johnson owned the
and-
Charlotte.
yeah, him and Michael
Hornets.
Jordan,
Michael
yeah.
Jordan's been an owner.
Yeah.
In terms of people of color now,
Yeah.
Alex Rodriguez is now
Yeah.
a major owner.
But look,
but
he
we
only
really-
the second one.
But we really don't like. This is when I'll know that sports has really made a leap. I want to see the black version of Jerry Jones in the NFL. I want to see the black version of Robert Kraft. I want to see the
But see,
black
also
version
when
of,
those guys bought teams, they paid maybe $300-400 million for the team. Maybe not that. Like when they brought the Kings here, you know how much they paid for the Kansas City Kings to buy them? $2.5 million.
wow, now you got to pay $1 billion for
Yeah,
a team.
basically. Well, you ain't even getting one for $1 billion. You got to pay $2-3 billion now. But
Yeah.
so, you know, then it becomes how
we
many
own
black guys got
$2
$2 or $3 billion, and to pay that much for a team, you got to be worth $6 to $10 billion.
Yeah, I guess
How many
Tyler,
black people got that
Tyler
much
Perry
money?
and Jay-Z got to come together and buy a team.
Yeah, you have to have a group of them come together. Now you have a lot of teams have minority owners that are black, but to have the principal owner being black, there are not many guys that can do that.
Yeah. Well, let me ask you this as we close. You know, you're a member
We
of the
closing
church.
already, man?
I know, man. This
Oh,
topic
man.
going so fast.
All
Okay,
right.
you got to
We're
come back.
we're gonna have to do a part
back,
two.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Yeah, because I know you got more stories. Because you.
Oh, dude, I got a million stories, but go ahead.
So you're a member of the church that I
Yes.
pastor.
Midtown Church. Let's say the name.
Yeah, Midtown Church of Sacramento.
Yes.
All right, Midtown. So, how has faith become important? Like when did you know belief in God, belief in Jesus? How did that become a big deal for you?
I think it started maybe the year before I started going here, and I was going to Bayside of South Sacramento.
Oh yeah.
With Pastor Darrell Scarborough.
Yeah.
And
that was when back the late Bishop Sherwood Carthen.
Bishop Sherwood Carthen, who kind of he was in with Bob starting. Was he in with Bob starting his church?
Yeah. I mean, well, definitely he supported Pastor Bob and stuff.
And so that was when I started going to church more and getting into it. By the time you met me, I had been kind of getting strong in my faith and looking at the people around me were church people. You know, all my friends now, or just about all of them, are church people. Every guy I hang with now is a married guy. I don't have any single guy friends. All my friends are married. And they give me a good example of how to live and how to look at people, look at women, look at people I want to call friends. They give a good example for me to follow. And that was the year before I came here. And then when the pandemic ended, I just started coming here because it was closer to my house. And I knew Gus. I've been friends with Gus since '85. Yeah. And I said, I'm going to Gus's church.
Yeah,
I
Gus
visited.
Armstead has been on this podcast.
I visited, but I hadn't gone regularly. And I started coming in. And once the pandemic ended, I've been here just about every week since then.
Yeah.
The only time I've missed is when I've been out of town or my car break down or something. But I've been here just about every week.
You're a blessing to our church. You're a
y'all
blessing
to me.
And definitely I got to have you on again, man.
I'll come again, man.
So
Because we didn't even talk about the
Reconcilers.
modern NBA. And
I know, we got to come back and talk.
Jordan was the best player, all right?
Yeah, I mean,
Kareem
I know.
might be second best. Will Chamberlain, guys like that.
You done made all my LeBron James viewers
Look,
mad.
LeBron, don't get me wrong. LeBron was good, but see, to me, you got to compare LeBron to Magic. He's like that kind of player.
That's true.
He scores more than Magic, but he's like that, has that kind. He has a point guard mentality. So LeBron doesn't go out there every game thinking, I'm going to take 40 shots and I'm going to score 40 points. Jordan took 40 shots every game. Yeah. Allen Iverson took 40 shots every game. Those guys had scores mentality. LeBron doesn't have a scores mentality. When his back gets against the wall, he said, hey, I got to score tonight. Yeah. But he doesn't come in every game thinking that.
So y'all heard it here. He's a professional.
Yeah.
He played in the NBA. He know better than me. Michael Jordan, the GOAT.
And don't get me wrong, LeBron is top 3, but look, Michael Jordan is the GOAT. I don't want to hear no argument.
We're going to close on that right there.
Thank you, Efrem. Thank you for having me.
So definitely he coming back because you can see
back.
we just getting started.
Yeah.
My producer's like, what's going on?
Yeah.
What's going on here?
Right, man,
what's going on here?
Look, the guy behind the camera like, come on, man, wrap it up.
He's like, we need this is the end credit scene right here. This is superhero. This is the end credit scene. All right, y'all. Thanks for joining in for another episode of Rise of the Reconcilers. I'm your guy, Efrem Smith, and this has been LaSalle Thompson.